Hello malty mellow Martians, and thank you to Martin Lucas Van Erp for that malt mention. I'm Ralphie. You have just arrived at the bothy. The bothy somewhere, anywhere, somewhere in particular but nowhere really. That kind of bothy. It could be any bothy. There are many bothies around Scotland, and they are very elemental places, a fantastic location to enjoy a whisky. I have a whisky here. This is Ralphie Review 920, and I am reviewing Glengrant 15-year-old batch strength single malt. I shall show you the bottle before I pour it. There it is. I have viewed Glengrant a few times on my channel, and I have very fond memories of it. It wasn't that long ago where you would arrive at an independent bottling retailer and you could see Berry Brothers Glengrant, Cadenhead Glengrant, or even some old Gordon and MacPhail Glengrants, which were stunning whiskies at excellent prices. Not anymore, unfortunately. Glengrant is one of these great Speyside distillery signatures, which has a very strong legacy in the history of Scotch single malt whisky because of its amazing character, particularly over time. Glengrant, along with Strathisla and Macallan, the old Macallan I'm talking about, not necessarily the new one. Let's make a difference here, because there needs to be. But it's one of these whiskies which was generally reckoned to be able to go the considerable distance in casks over not just years but decades, and still retain and grow a good solid definable signatory and not just become a generalised sort of cask washed single malt. And I don't tend to buy many of the official bottlings because I'm suspicious about them. And if I'm looking for Glengrant, which isn't very often these days, I'm looking at the independent bottlers. I'm looking for younger versions, and I don't see many of them around, unfortunately. I wish I could find more, because if I wanted to buy Glengrant, it is from the independent bottlers that I'd be looking to source it. This particular version is a higher strength. They call it batch strength. It is bottled at 50%, and this is the first edition, by the way. 15-year-old, so it should be a good age for Glengrant, letting it kind of settle down and lose some of its youthful heat. And it also states, once I get my steampunker to help me with a little writing, it also states that, there we go, it's the Major James Grant, right, created tall slender stills and unique purifiers to capture only the finest vapours. Well, to be honest, I'm wondering these days if they're still using the purifiers at Glengrant or whether they've just switched them off. There's writing on the back in a clear label in gold lettering, which is virtually impossible to see, so I'm not even going to attempt it. I'm not going to bother. I've poured a small glass. I'll keep the glass small. The reasons will become transparent fairly shortly. And what we can expect is, when you've got a first edition whisky, first edition, it's the Ambassador edition. It's the one that sets the tone. It sets the standards for every subsequent edition that comes from this particular range. So what have we got? Well, one of the first things I notice is there's a nice slightly Sultana Glengrant clear definitive signature, but also there's a little bit of heat, a little bit of what you'd call alcohol prickle. It's like a chili note on the nose, but it's more chemical than actual chilies. It's a kind of hotness on the nose. Strolly, strolly, no shaky shakies. There's some fairly restrained, for the age, some fairly restrained maturation. There's a little bit of sherry in there, but I'm also noticing a little bit of fresh bourbon cask. And on the taste, 50%. The Glengrant signature is quite clear, quite visible. Some barley sugar, soft barley sugar, sultana, little touch of spices, a few little green notes in there, some mild, gentle russet apple. However, the whole experience is overwhelmed by a heat that you will recognise from experience, because once you've tasted it, you never forget it, believe me. And it's called hot liquor. And hot liquor happens when you rush a still, when a still's operating too fast and it's a bit too hot, and the new make spirit is actually gushing out into the spirit safe. It's not trickling out like a contented stream. It's rushing out like a gushet in a storm, a rainstorm. And you get this hotness off the liquor, which is in there at point of production. There's no reason for it to happen other than poor quality production methods. And that's a personal opinion. Just to confirm, I know you know, but I'm just reminding you it's my personal opinion. So don't let me put you off this. But first engagement is not particularly pleasant. I've engaged with this about 8 times now, and none of them have been particularly pleasant. I'm going to add a drop of water because at 50% alcohol, it's quite strong in terms of alcoholic strength, but I'm not adding too much water, 3 millilitres. So 2/3 of a teaspoon. Because if you add too much, what happens is the flavour starts to die, but that heat, the burn, still remains. Any better? Let's find out. The heat subsides in the nose due to the dilution. You're getting more access to what is a reasonably pleasant, definitive Glengrant nose. Slightly aromatic, which is good. Raisin, sultana, touch of vanilla, some gentle soft spices, and that malty, very malty signature you get from Glengrant. Taste. Quite a hot arrival. The burn is overriding the flavours a little bit in the arrival. It does subdue slightly in the development, which is perfectly competent. This would be a really good whisky if it only slowed down the stills a little, in my opinion. Could you give me a minute or two? I'm now looking for something kind to say about this. Well, it's an experience. But having said that, I'd like to quantify what I've said by saying I won't be buying any more Glengrant for probably about 2 to 3 years from the official bottlings. I'm just walking away completely. I doubt I'm going to review Glen Grant in any form for at least 2 years, and when I do, if I do, it'll be from an independent bottling. But the problem is, the problem's not in the cask here, it's in the still, it's in the stills. The way they're running, in my opinion. I've come across this before, once with Glenfarclas, and several times with Little Mill. And it's a sensation rather than a flavour. And it never leaves you. It never ever leaves you. As soon as you nose it, as soon as you taste it, boom, it takes you straight there. You know what it is and you can't get away from it. It eclipses the rest of the experience totally. And whatever you've paid for the bottle, you regret paying. Give it time with water. The flavour will recover and sort of slightly subdue the heat, but not quite enough. What am I going to give this for a malt mark? $72 out of 100. That's a malt mark, malt mates. Now, I hear what you're saying. Hey, Ralphie, you're getting awful negative about whiskey these days. No, I'm not. I'm getting negative about some whiskies. Other whiskies, you will notice, I'm very positive about. The ones that are well made and professionally delivered in their entirety to the market. And when I pay the money, I feel that I've got value for money. I'm positive about them. But that's not all Scotch whiskies. This dogma, this old mantra that there's no such thing as a bad whiskey, you've got to scrub that out of your notebook right now if you haven't already done so. You need to stop believing the hype that all brands are different variations of good. It's all about the price we pay. When the price we pay for the whiskey is more than it used to be, you have this very fast transition from value to money for money to not value for money. And then you just stop buying. Don't feel peer group pressured, malt mates. Don't feel that you're part of the malt mates train that's trundling down the track. And it's all one great big party, and you know you're paying more money and you're more money. If you're not getting the value, and it's not what other people tell you, it's what you find out for yourself. It's on your terms for a simple reason. It's your money. And this is what I'm going to be discussing a little bit more about in my 920 extras coming up shortly. I hope you found this informative and illustrative. Obviously, you can tell I'm very disappointed in this, and I know exactly why. But it's not as if I'm going to pour this bottle down the drain. Far from it. I can use this for making a sort of liqueur or a winter dram or a herbaceous drink. Nothing goes to waste. But my final word of advice is to Glen Grant. Seriously, people, you can do so much better than this. So why? There's a reason why. And only you can address that. I'm Ralphie, hope you've enjoyed this, malt mates. Over and out from the bothy. We'll see you soon. If you've enjoyed this, click subscribe, likey the bells, thumbs up and all the rest of it. Or if you dislike it, that's fine, that's fine. It's just your way of showing how much you care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.